Men are unhappy only because they are ignorant. They are ignorant only because everything conspires to prevent them from being enlightened. And they are wicked only because their reason is not sufficiently developed. Jean Meslier. Nearly all philosophers of the Enlightenment recognize that the majority of men, even in the most civilized nation, are too pressed by economic necessities and toil to have the time for the development of reason. And that the masses of mankind are moved far more by passion and prejudice than by reason. Hi, I'm John Rose. Those two quotes came from the Age of Voltaire, Volume 9 of 11-volume series by Will and Ariel Durant, The Story of Civilization. Now, I like that first quote by Jean Meslier. It was on page 615. The second quote was on page 607. It preceded it. But I like that quote by Meslier. He hit the nail on the head, except in one spot. That we're wicked only because our reason has not been developed. My friends, whenever you try to answer a profound question, you got to take that answer and take a step back and take a look at it and say, is that really the definitive answer? Or is there a reason why we don't have the ability to reason? Is there a reason why we have to deal with economic necessities and toil? Yes, there is. You always got to go back to the first cause whenever you're going to try to answer a profound question like this. One of my favorite things to do is to read what other people say about what they think the answer is. And in most cases, they don't go back far enough to the first cause. Because pretty much everything they're going to come up with is a subsequent cause. The result of not having all of our senses. The result from the fall of mankind. Remember, folks, the very first mistake we made, it changed our mentality. Now we have an exchange mentality. So what Aristotle meant, all paid employments absorb and degrade the mind. We're not supposed to be working like we do. But the powers that be, the status quo, can only control us if we don't have any time to think and develop our ability to reason. But having the ability to reason is not enough. We need to learn how to live. One of the biggest obstacles in life when it comes to thinking and reasoning is having a cesspool inside of us and not enough sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells. Makes everything much more difficult. Sure, there are some brilliant people out there. Big old cesspools. Very little light in their cells. Only got 5 and a fraction senses. Big old cesspool, a serpent in their belly. And yet, they can be brilliant still. It only makes you wonder, gosh almighty, what would happen if they didn't have all that crap inside of them? What would happen if their cells were communicating? What would happen if all of us were like that? Gosh, this planet would be an amazing place to live if we could all get our act together. And right now, what's it like? It's like we're a bunch of crabs inside of a container and we're all grabbing each other, pulling each other down. And then inside this container, you got crabs at the top of the heap. They're controlling the rest of the crabs. It's an illusion. Even if you're at the top of the heat inside this hole, we're all still in a hole. We're not even coming close to living up to our potential. But I'm telling you, folks, that could change very quickly. It only took one generation to put us down into the hell we've got right now from making that mistake and repeating it. Remember, fall of mankind didn't just happen long ago. It's what we're doing today. It happened when we stopped eating biophotons. All we got to do is start eating biophotons once again. And when you do what it takes to eat the biophotons, you won't have a serpent inside you. And you'll have a whole different mentality thinking about this. Just think about this. Think how hard it is to get people to change their thoughts and their behaviors. It doesn't work. But if we can get them to change what they eat, if we can get them to start eating biophotons, it will change everything about them. And it will change everything about our species. Something so simple as destroying the life force in our food is what turned this planet into hell. And yet we're in such a state of denial. You'll see people going around saying, oh, this is what made our brains double in size. Cooking is what made our brains double in size. God, you got that so far ass backwards it's not even funny. We didn't have the brain power to master fire, let alone make a bad application. Look at the timeline when everything happened. Our brains doubled in size first, long, long ago. It took a long time. 1.2 million years before we even mastered fire, once our brains doubled in size. It took us another 12% of our existence before we made a bad application. Put it on a timeline. Brains doubled in size about 2/3 into our existence, around the 4 million mark, 2 million years ago. We went another 20% on down that road to the 87-yard line. That's another 1.2 million years. That's when we mastered fire. Then we went another 12% all the way down to the 1-yard line. And that's when we started cooking our food consistently. And yet you're going to find people that don't want us to wake up to that reality. They're going to say, oh, that's what made our brain double in size way back 2 million years ago. Wait a second. How could we cook when we didn't know how to do it? We had a brain that was a little bitty thing. Remember, our brains went from about 400 cc's to 800 cc's. By the time we started cooking our food, it was way up around 1,300 or so. And yet, they want us to believe, with these little bitty brains, we knew how to cook. And that's what made the brains get bigger. It doesn't even make sense. Let's ruin the food, and that's going to make us smarter. No, it was eating the animals that made our brains bigger, right? Oh, is that why all those carnivores are so smart? Oh, God, isn't it funny how people want to believe what they want to believe? There's only one way to make any sense out of this. If you're brand new to any of this, you got to test an idea as time has come. You got to see what you're missing. You got to correct these 5 main mistakes just on a temporary basis. That's what my solid food vacation is all about. Then once you correct these 5 mistakes, you'll get a better idea of what you're missing. You'll realize that you've never felt this good before. And then when you go eat some of those foods you grew up on, you're going to realize that's not food. You're going to feel horrible. You might even enjoy eating it, but you're not going to like the way it feels. You feel afterwards, and you're not going to like that it's going to take away the way you're feeling now. Once you realize there's a whole other level for us to live, to exist on, in every area of our lives, you realize that's what you want every moment of your life. You don't want to lose all that for just a few moments of indulging in food we're not even meant to eat. It doesn't love you, folks. It's going to kill you. You got to wake up to that reality. Now think about what I'm just saying here. All we have to do is in one generation change what we teach our children. Teach them to stop killing those biophotons. Get them to start eating their biophotons. Remember, that's the fall of mankind. When we stopped eating biophotons, it changed our whole species. No more golden ages. Now we got all these problems that are within our control. But we're addicted and in denial about what we're doing. So what happens to most of us? We do things we think are okay, and they're not okay. They are wrong. They are the reason why we have so many problems. And this planet could transform just like that. All we have to do is say, from here on out, this next generation, we'll give you guys who've been doing this for a while, we'll give you a little bit of leeway. But from here on out, as of a certain date, every child has to have a minimal biophoton level. And we'll realize that giving children food without biophotons is no different than blowing smoke in their face. You wouldn't blow smoke in your baby's face now, would you? And yet you'll give them cow's milk and wonder why they got plugged up ears. Well, you go to the doctor, and they don't know anything, right? Well, we'll put some tubes in there and drain it. Keep feeding them the milk. That milk doesn't have any biophotons. Most of what you guys are feeding your babies, pasteurized cow's milk, 3 times the casein as mother's milk. It's what they use to make glue with. Well, I tell you, if you're feeding your children cow's milk, pasteurized cow's milk, you don't deserve to have children because you haven't learned how to feed them. And yet that pretty much describes the whole planet, doesn't it? No one deserves to have children. Not the way we're going, because that's where our problems start. They start in childhood, before we're even able to walk or talk, we're already brought up into a belief system and a way of life that guarantees every generation is going to keep ending up where we are. It's not a good place. Fall of mankind, long time ago, made a mistake. One generation passed it on. We've been doing it for 3,000 generations. It's a long time. And it only takes one generation to get us back into the golden ages. All we got to do, start eating those biophotons. And when we do, woo, we're in for a treat.